had good rain in September there, and it made a world of difference. It cut time and really saved the day for us. Things were pretty grim until then, but...
A fiery sun climbing through the sparse trees of Australia's emptiness announces the dawn at this bush camp, a rough, bumpy 100 miles from Alice Springs. The Outback radio discussion about the drought doesn't affect these men. They are geologists beginning another day in the search for minerals. Helicopters help in the search. At Alice Springs, geologist Gustav Tam explains the day's work plan.
Well, we start as soon as possible in the morning, about 7 o'clock. Normally we manage to work for about 4 hours before we had to go back to refuel. Averagely, we take about 40-50 samples per day, and we'll make about 30-35 stops per day. Normally we're back about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Gustav is from Sweden. His helicopter pilot, John Pond, is an American. A last-minute conference.
Perhaps drop down a couple of times around here to see if there is anything interesting, and then we take a couple of samples here and go on the other side perhaps too, but we won't stay there too long.
All right, well, anything that you feel that might be worthwhile alighting at en route, don't hesitate to let me know, and we'll put right down on it.
Yep.
Okay, as far as I can see, we're ready to go.
Many nations are looking for minerals these days. Even the men in this particular camp come from many countries, but the company employing this team is Australian. In charge here, South African Erhard Kostlin.
Well, this camp is the base of operations in CRA's exploration efforts in this particular project here in this valley in Central Australia, where we are engaged in searching for a wide variety of minerals, mainly base metals, which means copper, lead, zinc, nickel, generally anything that could constitute a viable mining operation one day.
The main purpose with the helicopter is, of course, to be able to cover a larger area than you can do by Land Rover. With a helicopter, we are able to get into very rugged terrain, and we can stop there and take our creek samples.
The work here is being done on a large cattle station. We get on pretty well with the owner. We obtain all our water supplies from him and fresh meat supplies. And in return, he has got a free access road. And occasionally he receives a fresh home-baked loaf of bread, baked by one of the boys who has turned out to be an excellent baker.
The main problem is, of course, landing into the wind and the obstacles that you encounter coming into a clearing or coming into the forks of a creek. There actually is no problems, providing we do a real accurate reconnaissance over the area that we intend to alight and shoot the approach from the most advantageous and most safe angle, drop the geologist off, and depending upon what he finds initially, and when he is ready, then we take off to the next designated spot on the map.
Once the ground crew has arrived at its location, the clock seems to turn back to the days of the fossicker, hammer in hand, chipping hopefully at the rock faces. It's rare now to find signs of minerals on the surface. Years of painstaking search by past prospectors have almost ruled that out.
One of the first methods of defining an area of interest would be creek sampling, and this is based on the idea that at any particular point in a stream, the sediment is representative of the rocks and soils which are derived from that particular catchment area.
But surface samples don't always give the true picture. Frequently, you have to look for magnetic and geochemical clues as to what lies under the surface.
The samples are then sent to the laboratories of the Zinc Corporation in Broken Hill, where they are chemically analyzed for their metal contents. We are still really in the preliminary stages. We haven't got anywhere near the stage where, for instance, we are in a position to put down drill holes.
Is this something of value? No, it's a valueless silicate called biotite. In the past decade, Australia has emerged as one of the world's richest mineral nations, and these are some of the minerals that have made it so. From Broken Hill, galena, the most important mineral of lead. Sphalerite, the most important mineral of zinc. It too is from Broken Hill. This is hematite, which in pure form contains 70% iron. This sample came from the Hammersley range in Western Australia. This specimen of chalcopyrite, an important copper mineral, came from Bougainville Island in the territory of Papua and New Guinea. It is sometimes called fool's gold. This is bauxite, the main ore of aluminium. The deposit at Weipa contains over 2,000 million tons. All these are basic to industry, and the demand for them is strong. They are extracted and treated by the CRA group of companies, and the principal springboard for their development has been Broken Hill. Heading the group is a Broken Hill man with over 50 years in mining, Sir Maurice Morby.
This is the city of Broken Hill, which was founded about 1884, and of course is based on the very famous Broken Hill lead, silver, zinc lode. The city is also known as the Silver City because it dominated the production of silver for many years, and also known as the Fabulous Hill because of the immense wealth derived from the working of the ore body, which in turn has provided so much both in money and in technical brains for the development of other industries in Australia. The population of the city is at present, and has been for many years, about 30 to 35,000 people, and it would appear from present underground information that the city will be producing for some 50 years. Well, Broken Hill today is still the largest individual producer in lead and zinc. I think it may be surpassed in a few years' time by Mount Isa, but its standing is right at the top of the tree, and wherever you visit mines elsewhere in the world, an introduction from Broken Hill, it means an open sesame to operations in their plants.
The miners of Broken Hill stand high in the estimation of Sir Maurice. Broken Hill, he says, is a place where there is no sham or subterfuge, where there is a great spirit of independence. The mines of the CRA group are the Zinc Corporation and New Broken Hill Consolidated, which produce both lead and zinc concentrate. Gone are the days of the miner wielding the pick and shovel. In these mines, the ore shattered by explosives is handled easily by modern machinery. "3,000 feet below the surface, an enthusiastic Tony Brown explains the working of his machine.
With the face there, after we've fired a full end of dirt, we come in, bar down and clean up, and we use these haglings to bog the dirt into. The bogger is at the front of the train with one man working it, and all the dirt is transferred into this from the bogger, and then we've got 3 cars. Each car holds about 34 tonne of dirt, I think it is. When you've done this operation, you get the mini bore in and start boring out again. We charge up and fire. The next shift comes in and does the same operation straight over again. It makes it a lot easier. There's not so much bullock and work in it. With all this new equipment, it's all hydraulic. It really makes the operation a lot easier. I've been a miner for 4.5 years with the company, and I really like mining, otherwise I bloody wouldn't be working here. Like, you know, it's born in the family. My father was a miner, my grandfather, and I think it's in the blood, otherwise I wouldn't be down here, and that's the way it is. If you're a lad and you come here, it don't take long to become a man, but you know, you really get to know the facts of life.
Along the maze of rails, battery-operated locomotives haul truckloads of ore to an ore pass near the haulage shaft. The ore gravitates to a crusher and then is hauled to the surface by skip. In a continuous operation, the ore is ground in water to make a slurry. It then passes to cells where air is injected and chemical reagents added. This is the flotation process, and it is almost metallurgical magic. The valuable mineral particles attach themselves to the bubbles and rise to the surface. First the lead is removed and then the zinc. In a nearby control room, instruments monitor the process and recorders keep an accurate account of each stage of the sensitive operation, which allows little margin for error. The laboratory at the Zinc Corporation plays an important role in the overall activity of the group. Here, a staff of 30 provides analytical services not only for the mine and the flotation plant, but for the exploration program as well. Broken Hill has done its job. The lead and zinc concentrate is on its way for further processing. This can happen in many places, overseas, at Port Pirie in South Australia, and here on the east coast near Newcastle. This is Sulphide Corporation's works at Cockle Creek. Sulphide was acquired in 1948 with the object of installing an imperial smelting furnace. The ISF, as it's known, was a new type of furnace which could produce zinc and lead metal at the same time. The concentrates from Broken Hill finished their 700-mile journey. The concentrates are first made into sinter and then go to the ISF with other additives as a prepared charge. The furnace is tapped every 1.5 to 2 hours, the slag run off, and the valuable lead removed for casting into ingots for export. The zinc comes from the ISF as a vapor and is condensed ingeniously with the aid of lead. It flows into these cooling launders where the metals separate. Sulphide at little capital cost, but with innovations and careful planning, has improved the smelter's performance by about 40% over its original capacity. The zinc refinery removes the various impurities in a fractional distillation process. About half the zinc from the ISF is refined to produce higher grade products for customers, for uses such as die casting or continuous galvanizing. The ingots are handled with care by this almost human machine. Superintendent Brian Tozer is in charge of the refinery. He's responsible for keeping impurities in the highest grade zinc down to 1 part per 10,000. Here at Sulphide, the end result is achieved by the combined efforts of many people with high skills. The apprenticeship program guarantees skilled labor for the future. More than half the company's metal output is sold overseas each year and earns about $12 million. Down there is Dampier, 2,500 miles northwest of Sulphide. It's the export port for the Hammersley operation. A quiet backwater less than 10 years ago, today it's the scene of tremendous activity. The bulk carriers of the world come and go, and some can lift over 100,000 tons at a time. Youth predominates in Hammersley. The average age is less than 30. The company's managing director is Mr. Russell Madigan, a mining engineer with a law degree as well.
Hammersley made its first shipment of iron ore in August 1966, and this was quite an achievement at the time. In the 4.5 years since then, our production has increased 4.5 times. There were two important points proved by Hammersley in 1966. First, it showed the world that we could stick to a tight schedule and start production when we promised to. Second, through the freight advantages of big ore carriers, it proved also that the remoteness of Australia was no bar to selling ores in Europe, or in fact in other countries of the world. Hammersley has been on the march ever since, and this will continue. .180 miles from the mine site of Tom Price, Dampier is fast becoming Hammersley's industrial centre. It began with the production of pellets there in 1968. Designed capacity of the plant is 2 million tonnes a year, and the layout is such that the plant can be duplicated when required. Pelletizing is a method of producing balls of iron ore of uniform size which can be fed directly into the blast furnace. Hammersley is also looking into steel production and plans to make HIMET from late 1973. A metallized product of iron ore, HIMET is approximately 93% iron and can be made into steel in electric arc furnaces. Across the continent in Melbourne, the future of Hammersley's operations is being decided by men and modern machines.
I've got the final assay results here for Parabadoo. If you'd like to take them down, we'll get underway. Iron 65.1.
Our mining engineer will have dug the new mine at Parabadoo a dozen times on paper before operations commence in earnest. Playing the mining game on computers doesn't only eliminate problems, it can prevent mistakes before they develop expensively in practice. John Roberts is in his early 30s and holds a master's degree in mining, which he got, he says, not because he's a brain, but because he worked damned hard. He is producing a picture of the ore body in mathematical form, so that the most efficient mining method can be worked out. Others are working on Parabadoo. This is the drafting office of the group's Central Engineering Services. The staff here is working on the many services which will be needed. It's also designing the new township and the rail link which will connect Parabadoo to the Tom Price system. Heading the team is Jack Larkin. Ore bodies like Hammersley's second mine at Parabadoo have a bad habit of occurring far from civilization, and before mining can start, workers and their families must be housed. 37-year-old John Keogh is leader of the engineering team concerned with the expansion. As well as housing and Parabadoo, he's responsible for other works which will raise Hammersley's output to 37.5 million tons by 1974.
Well, Jack will require close on to 600 houses by the end of '72.
We've let contracts for $12 million for these houses, and construction is proceeding very well at site. We're currently handing over to you 5 houses a week.
And are you sure the standard is comparable with Tom Price and Dampier?
Yes, we've paid close attention to this. The houses are all electric, are air conditioned, and as you know, television will be relayed from Tom Price to Parabadoo. I think you're spoiling them a little, aren't you?
No, not at all, Jack. to keep a workforce happy in the northwest, you've got to make sure they're comfortable.
In mining towns, housing is an expensive word. Dampier's houses are all electric and air-conditioned, and the rental is $6 a week. Communities like this are helping to decentralize the nation. Hammersley, for example, has 4 towns. Tom Price and Dampier are about the same size, while in the next few years, Paraburdoo will have 2,500 and Karratha 1,500 people. Comalco's Weipa has 1,000. Bougainville's copper towns will be even bigger. Panguna with 2,000 and Arawa on the coast with 8. All are as self-sufficient as possible, with their own churches, hospitals and schools. Karratha in the west and Bougainville's integrated town of Arawa are being built on a different basis from the others. They are open towns, as distinct from company towns, and are being developed on a joint basis after consultations between government and company leaders, such as Bougainville Copper's Managing Director, Mr. Frank Espy.
Bougainville will become one of the group's major operations when we start production in mid-1972. When we came to Bougainville, we realised that the territory of Papua New Guinea will have independence early in the life of the mine. And we have an obligation to ensure that on independence, Bougainville Copper and its men are well regarded. We've had our problems, but the project is going well and we expect to start up on time. This is the first time an operation of this size has been established in the territory, so we're pioneers there.
This is the mine site of Panguna, as it will be, although the open cut won't look like this for many years. About 16 road miles away, down on the coast at Aniwa Bay, a similar transformation is taking place. From here will flow the copper that will more than double the export level of the territory by 1973. Already, sales have been arranged with Japan, Germany and Spain. Not only Bougainville, but the whole of the territory will benefit from the operation. Bougainville Copper will make large tax and royalty payments, and the people will have a 20% shareholding. Getting the operation underway hasn't been easy. Earth moving on a large scale has been essential, including the construction of an access road over some of the most precipitous country imaginable. A complicated bench system, often rising 400 feet, was necessary to protect the road from landslides and to divert water from it. In this tropical region, areas temporarily denuded of foliage will soon be covered again. Teams of bulldozers work hard to remove overburden from the mine area. The whole operation suffered from an acute shortage of flat space, so it had to be created. Huge tonnages of material are pushed to high-pressure water jets, which wash it away. Another problem is rain, 200 inches a year. It falls on an average of 26 days in the month, with predictable results. The construction phase is well advanced and many homes have been built. Families are getting to know each other. Sierra has trained in mechanical engineering at Ley and now works on mining maintenance. Mr. Espy says that Sierra and other territory people will form more than half the permanent workforce.
Bougainville Copper has 3 main objectives: relations with the native people, to achieve a high degree of integration between the white and coloured population, to work harmoniously with the established order of life on the island, and to employ and train as many local people as possible.
On Australia's Cape York Peninsula is Weipa, the site of one of the world's biggest bauxite deposits.
This is bauxite, the ore from which aluminium is produced. Comalco has millions of tons of this bauxite in Cape York Peninsula. We were fortunate in 1955 when we had a geological party in there looking as to the possible occurrence of oil and natural gas. But fortunately and very surprisingly found the bauxite of a very large deposit sufficient to provide the Australian demands for many, many years. In fact, that demand has now increased so much that we are actually producing really for the world. This ore contains a quarter of its weight of aluminium, so that this bauxite is treated at Gladstone and at Bell Bay in Tasmania to produce alumina, and the alumina is dispatched to various places in the world and shortly to a new plant in New Zealand to produce ingot aluminium, pure aluminium metal, which again then is processed to form extrusions, including window frames and complex extrusions such as this, and even today the very humble but much appreciated aluminium can containing the right drink.
The container for the right drink is but one application. Other uses are appearing regularly. Cans and containers for all types of food and drink, all with the unique qualities of this metal that can be shaped so easily, and the cans have a scrap value. At this smelter at Bell Bay in Tasmania, aluminium capacity is currently 94,000 tonnes a year. Australia's demand for aluminium has grown at a phenomenal rate. In 1960 it was £10 a head. Now it is £23. Comalco's strength lies in its self-sufficiency in all aspects of the aluminium industry. New products have added a new look to the building industry. Aluminium window frames, panels and coloured sheeting that stand up to weather and add beauty to the nation's buildings. Comalco's restless energy has established interests in all states and is now turning overseas. A smelter at Bluff in New Zealand will supply international markets from mid-1971. An alumina plant will start up on the Mediterranean island of Sardinia in 1972. Comalco is a partner and sole supplier of bauxite for this venture within the common market. It has its man in Hong Kong and another in Tokyo. These little red pellets have been brought a long way by Australian skills and endeavour.
The pictures you have seen show some of our most important operations, but believe me, they cost a lot of money. And this sort of money is not available in Australia.
Hammersley, Bougainville, Comalco and its Australian associates have spent or plan to spend on current expansion a grand total of $1,803 million. Where does it come from? Much of it from overseas.
We've had to go abroad to borrow this money, and in fact we are very proud that we're able to establish a credit rating to have the financiers of the world look to investment in Australia.
CRA has obtained funds in many parts of the world. The Bank of America has been an important source. In mid-1969, in conjunction with the Commonwealth Trading Bank, it agreed to make available over $200 million for the Bougainville operation. Japan also has helped the group's operations with cash and equipment loans.
Mining has always been a risk industry, but it's been our policy in these large operations to establish the operation on an economic basis before we invite the public to participate. And as you'll know already, we have public participation in several of our new companies.
What of the future? There's much to look forward to. Besides iron ore in the west, there is nickel in two areas south of Kalgoorlie, where drilling showed such promise that 2 shafts are being sunk for further investigations. Coal holds the centre stage in Queensland, again in a number of areas which have a variety of coal types. A coking coal deposit is being investigated near Capella. This could be linked with a steaming coal operation 45 miles to the north at Blair Athol, now small but capable of great expansion. It's a unique deposit, saucer-shaped, 100 feet thick, vast in tonnage. But mining isn't the only interest of the future. At Broken Hill, a new type of flotation cell has been devised. The cell's efficiency has been proved, but tests are continuing to assess its economic advantages. For several years, there has been research into smelting, the most advanced aspect of which is a continuous process known as Walkra. It's economical and cuts down on pollution and can be used for copper smelting, as seen here at Port Kembla, and also nickel. A plant based on similar principles and producing steel continuously has been tested in Sweden. What the next decade will bring is hard to assess. If it matches the last 10 years, Australia will continue to gain strength and international importance as a mineral nation. The men who discover the minerals will have more sophisticated tools, but there will still be exploration camps in the bush, the mining men yarning about that find just around the corner. Sir Morris says,
when one does find a mine, there's a thrill that can never be recaptured, because after all, you can see from that area the ultimate growth of towns, of communications, and a revenue and export income for our country.
And that surely would be any man's reward.